daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Today is a crossover. Joining me is Locked On Phillies host Dan Wilson. Dan, happy Thursday. It's Thursday, November 18th. It's 1 week from Thanksgiving today, and it's 75 degrees outside here in Richmond, Virginia. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's not just Thursday, Josh Neighbors. We are recording this just hours beforehand. It is Bryce wins the MVP day. Bryce Harper, of course, known very well, polarizing depending on who you ask in the Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. corridor. It does appear like he is going to win it today. Of course, Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals is up for this award as well. He is one of the finalists. I'm sure we will get into all of that and more. But you're right, 75 degrees this late into November. It's gross. Like I like warm weather as much as the next person. It's a little bit cooler here in the Philadelphia area, for the record. But
I don't think it's that bad. Hold on. I'll count it. I think it's fine. It's going to get really cold. It's coming. Why can't we just enjoy a little bit more warmth just for a couple more days?
We can have warmth, but it's unseasonably warm. Like, I don't want a tease of cold coming and then it goes back to warm just for one day and then back to like 20 degrees. I like the gradual stages of fall. Give me some hoodie weather. Give me like 50 degrees consistently. And you know what else? There's nothing more annoying than a 75-degree day where the sun sets at like 4:30. Like, that just does not fit at all. It's annoying.
You know what's worse? It's like a 30-degree day when the sun sets at 4:30.
Yeah, I'm not calling for 30 degrees, to be clear.
I'm just saying that it could be a lot worse. Things we can agree on that are good. Today, there was news that minor league baseball players are going to get housing. I'm going to read a tweet here from Chelsea James of the Washington Post. It says, quote, MLB announces its owners have agreed to provide housing for all minor leaguers except those with major league contracts or making more than six figures. Estimates that will be 90%. Estimates say that there'll be 90% of all minor leaguers at all levels. And here is one more tweet. There are some of the things. They have to be compliant with whatever the housing kind of standards are. Bedrooms must contain a single bed per player, and there shall be no more than two players per bedroom. Accommodations must be furnished with. And clubs will be responsible for basic utility bills and at club provided living arrangements. There's a couple other things too. But this is really important. And it's also a final thing. Players shall be entitled to receive housing accommodations anytime they are directed to report, but will always retain the right to opt out of club provided housing. So this is a huge step forward, right, for minor leaguers. I'm surprised that it didn't come in like a CBA type situation where like the owners, because I mean, they're all a bunch of, owners in every sport are very money hungry dudes and gals, both own teams. And they will use things like this as a negotiating tool sometimes. Good on Major League Baseball and the owners for doing this. This is long overdue, but it is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the living style and living standards of minor league baseball players have been, I think, well documented as, a little more than subpar for a while now. It is quite hard to, unless you're some minor league stud, unless you're Juan Soto just flying through the ranks and playing in the minor leagues is anything but temporary, or Bryce Harper or anything like that. Going to the minor leagues is scary because you're playing for what is basically not a living wage. You're only getting paid in season. You're living in, I guess at least a place where the cost of living generally is not that high, though it varies. There's minor league baseball teams in places like Richmond. There's also minor league baseball teams in places like the middle of Iowa or upstate New York, or not exactly a whole lot to do or see other than the team you're playing for.
Right.
You're kind of forced to just live in whatever small apartment you have. You're taking long bus rides, and it's anything but glamorous as you take the road to the major leagues. And only the top few percent who emerged from that type of system actually make it to the major leagues, and they get the luxurious lifestyle. And so it's easy to glamour over minor league baseball teams who can't charge the same thing for ticket prices, can't charge the same in ad revenue, things like that. And the minor leagues get totally screwed. And it's kind of frustrating, I'm sure, to the minor league players, to fans of baseball, to see the inequity in how that revenue is distributed. And so actually, taking a step in the direction of providing housing and just making their lifestyle a tad more affordable. Again, it's not a full-on solution, but it's better than things were, I guess, 24 hours ago when this rule didn't officially exist yet.
Yeah, it's important too because this, Major League Baseball has had so many negative news stories, and they have struggled with positive press. So this is an area that just quality of life type stuff is going to go up for minor league players. It's guys that we don't think about, a whole lot. And also think about too, like there are a lot of guys. I know that some of them are on, major league contracts, whatever, and some guys are on minor league contracts. But like there are guys who go up and down between places, right? It is a very unstable living situation. Kind of achieving your dreams is going to involve shifting from place to place, right? From minor league to major league, minor league to major league, from minor league to minor league. It's really rough. And so at least the very bare minimum the league can do is provide, quality enough housing for people who are part of the sport. And I think that's just kind of the bottom line on that. Anything else before we move on, Dan?
Well, it's just frustrating because it's not as if it's some small business where you're like, well, where are they going to get the money to do this? Right? It's
the problem is it's an expense where there's no way that they can count. I think the owners probably look at it like this. It's an expense where there's no way to actually counteract the cost, right? It's just housing the players. I wouldn't say it's a sunk cost, but they kind of look at it that way, right? I mean, what's going to tip the till, for them to offset it? Now, I would say they've got enough money to offset it as it is. But I think that's kind of where they get upset.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right. Quick word from our sponsors here before we move on. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at betonline.ag. Go to BetOnline today. They've got a new interface. You can go on your phone, you can go on your computer. You can sign up. It's easy to do. It's free to sign up. And upon your first deposit, if you use the promo code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKEDON, Locked On, you'll receive a 50% deposit bonus today at betonline.ag. Once again, promo code Locked On for a 50% deposit bonus today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, Dan, so tonight we do have the MVP finalists. And look, we're not going to debate, there's not going to be a debate about who is going to win it. We'll know here pretty soon. But kind of it's one more revisiting of this Soto versus Harper thing. And I am of the opinion, and this is just not me as a Nationals podcaster, I am of the opinion that there are legitimate arguments for both players. There is a path where, like any of you all college football fans, and when you see Gary Barta come out there and justify where Michigan State are ranked, you're like, that makes no sense at all. That is no horrible justification. This is the opposite. This is, if somebody were to have to step out on the stage and say, we went with Juan Soto, here is why. We went with Bryce Harper, here is why. I think both are easily justifiable. Both guys are deserving of an MVP award. Tough. They only hand out one of them, so that's what makes it so difficult. But both guys are very much deserving, and it'll be noted if one of them comes up short that it was just short. And whoever wins, it was not a robbery. I'm sure some fans will feel that way. There's no way you could say this thing's a robbery either way.
Yeah, no, I don't think it'll be a robbery. I'm sure fans in Philly or fans in Washington would disagree with that. I know the expectations, even since the season have ended, have heightened. It's been announced that Mike Schmidt will be presenting tonight's award.
Which might be kind of a little hint for who's winning.
Well, they've done this kind of thing before. If you want to have suspense as to who's winning, don't pick the greatest player of all time from one of the franchises of the guy who's the odds-on favorite to win. So,
right.
I don't know if that's something you should really announce. Maybe as you're announcing and be like, and here to present Bryce Harper with the MVP award. Here's Mike Schmidt. And you're like, oh, what a cool moment. But no one knew it. Instead, you're doing this thing where it's
also
like, hey,
Mike Schmidt, a guy who openly said he believes Bryce Harper should be the MVP as well.
So what are you going to do? Mike Schmidt presents the award to Juan Soto? That wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
So, look, I hear you on the arguments for both sides thing. I think Juan Soto had an unbelievable season. This is not me being wearing the homer glasses and saying I couldn't see Soto wearing it. They both, right fielders, star bats, and by the end of the season, I mean, the Nationals were much worse than the Phillies. They sold off, obviously, at the trade deadline, and it felt like the only reason why anyone would go to a Nationals game or tune into the Nationals, and I talked to you about this a number of times, it's like, just bet, get Juan Soto in the lineup and let's see him hit. I think said to you, if not on my podcast in general, by the end of the season, if I was Dave Martinez, I would have been batting the dude leadoff. Just get him as many at bats as possible. What the hell? Like, no one's getting on base for him regardless. Just get him up to the plate. Get him.
Hey, there are a few guys getting on base for him there at the end of the season. Don't discount Lane Thomas and Alcides Escobar.
Oh, sorry. So, yeah,
they did a little bit of decent work for him. I'll be honest, Dan. It was not the offense that did them in the end. It's those 42 bullpen losses that that's where the traction.
You don't need to lecture me on bullpen losses. I've seen more than
no, but I'm saying I'm just saying I know
the Nationals. I'm saying
dreadful. Yeah,
dreadful.
Nobody was watching the end of the year and was like, what's the problem? This offense. This offense is the issue.
I got you. Well, anyway, I still would have gotten Juan Soto as many at bats as possible. I guess you want to boost that RBI total. For a while there, it looked like Bryce Harper maybe would not be the MVP because he went through a cold stretch when he was battling back from injury, and then he also missed some games in there. But all of these guys have played more than enough games to be considered for the MVP. Bryce Harper had the highest OPS in baseball, 35 home runs. His RBI total for that reason was a little low, but it's not like I am glad in a way that none of these guys were playing in the postseason, not from a standpoint of, well, three of baseball's biggest stars were not playing the playoffs. That is a bad thing, but I'm glad that I don't have to worry about say from a Phillies perspective that Bryce Harper is going to lose out to a guy who quote unquote led his team to October.
Right.
Like this is going to be literally just about the numbers. Three guys whose final day of the season was the final day of the regular season.
Can we throw out Tatis? Like, can we?
Yeah,
well,
it's funny because Tatis was the leader in the clubhouse. He would have been the odds-on favorite 4 months there. Like,
right.
Guy. It was really late surges from Bryce and Soto that pushed this thing over the edge. I just think Soto's push was very, very strong. I think Bryce's actually happened to be a little bit better, which is incredible considering Bryce wasn't even an all-star, and he finished with like the greatest numbers in total. I mean, he is the reason why the Phillies even finished with the winning record. Like there was really no reason for that other than, I mean, there were. Zach Wheeler was a Cy Young candidate.
But he's not. It's every fifth day, right? It's not an average.
It's every fifth day. Although I kind of come back with that argument. People say, well, the pitcher shouldn't win the MVP. It's every fifth day, but I would also argue that on those days he has 5 times the impact. So what?
Well, it's I don't know about that. I'm just saying Bryce every single day. I mean, it felt like Bryce
really is in the lineup every single day. He's getting pitched around.
But he was keeping you guys in it. He was keeping you guys in it every
which
day.
Is hard by himself, and he would rake. And it was like, all right, well, Bryce is going to homer today. His first inning at bats were appointment television. It was like, all right, they're going to try and get him out tonight. He'll go yard, and then they'll start to dial it back. Guy was ridiculous, on a tear. He was the best solo show in baseball for the end of the summer through September. I think that's why he wins the MVP. But it's not as if Soto wins it, you're like, I could sit here and be like, oh my God, they gave it to someone who wasn't even close.
I think the best argument for Bryce, and I would totally accept it, is, look, he was the one guy in the offense that was keeping this team. I mean, he kept them in it. I know it was obviously pitching too, but he offensively was so dominant and so good that the second half, he kept them in it. He kept them in the playoff hunt, and I think that should be noted. Juan didn't have that luxury. I would say his argument is more, look, the home run numbers, Bryce got him beat by 6, and RBIs, Bryce was down 11, but I don't think that to me does not matter. Here's the one thing. I think the case for Soto, and like, if you're looking for best statistical season, that's fine. A lot of people define value in different ways. I think if you want to make the argument for Juan Soto being, like next year if he's the best player in baseball, which very well might be, it's the Ks, it's the K to walk ratio. So Juan this season, 145 walks to 93 Ks. Bryce, 100 walks to 134 Ks. Now, not awful, not atrocious, not anything, but that just gives you an idea of how good Juan Soto was at getting on base. I mean, his second half on base percentage was above 500. Barry Bonds, right? That's what we're putting him at. That's kind
Barry
of the category.
Bonds-esque, yes.
It's very much Barry Bonds-esque, and for him to, hit 313 with a 465 on base percentage. No, he wasn't, he wasn't slugging the way Harper was, and Harper had, double the doubles that Juan had this year too. So no, in slugging percentage he gets beat, and Bryce's hits you could argue a bit more, a bit more impactful when they did happen. But Juan is just a constant barrage of I'm on base, I'm getting important hits, I'm on base. That's kind of just how it went.
Really quick question for you, because I was debating this with Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates. I discussed this in my own podcast. What are your thoughts on just MLB awards in general? Like, isn't it kind of funny? So we have the Cy Young Award, Best Pitcher, makes sense, right? We have the Hank Aaron Award, Best Hitter, but it's not held in the same regard as MVP and Cy Young. They announced it a week earlier. I don't think anyone remembers who
won the award this year. I don't even remember who won it this year.
Bryce Harper did.
Okay, so there you go.
So here's my question. If we're acknowledging that Bryce Harper is the best offensive player in the National League, then is there something like how much does
who wins the
MVP?
This is a great point.
How many things?
So I think you could flip these. I would say I think Juan Soto. This is the best hitter, right? I think you could watch the season and say
offensive player.
I think Juan Soto fits that criteria. I think when you watch him play, that's the
even though he already lost. So if Harper won the Hank Aaron Award, theoretically the only thing that, or I guess
I understand what you're saying.
Let's call it best hitter. The only thing that can win Juan Soto the MVP at this point, if it's the same voters, would be if he did enough as a base runner and a defensive player. Which, how often are we seeing MVPs, unless it's maybe a catcher, really based up, or the guy is the best center fielder in baseball?
So here is the award list. Here's what it says. Hank Aaron Award is for the annually the best overall offensive player or performer, each offensive performer in each league. So I would say that's Juan Soto. I would say most valuable player. I'm gonna do number when these two things are this tight, right? Like Harper and Soto are this tight. I would say I want to put a little value in there, like what Bryce was doing on a day-to-day basis. I know Juan didn't have the chance to do it, but Bryce actually had a chance to impact a race and kept his team in it a whole lot longer than they had any reason to be in it. So for that reason, I believe he is the most valuable player. But best offensive player, the best offensive player I watched this year was Juan Soto. And that's my honest opinion.
So you would say that Harper should win the MVP, even though you believe that Juan Soto was the best offensive player in the National League.
Yes. Yeah.
Bryce Harper should be the MVP because of where his team was.
Yes, but that's because he positioned them there. If that makes sense. So
he positioned them there, but as a worse offensive player.
No, worse is the wrong word. He's not as I would say he's not as
quite
prolific.
As good.
Well, because here's the thing. Juan could hit 1 through 4, and you're like, that makes sense to me, right? Now he's not going to hit with the same amount of power, obviously, but he is so well-rounded. He is just unbelievably well-rounded. Not saying there's not areas where Bryce is not better than, but Juan is better in more areas than Bryce.
My overall point is this: I think we've reached a point in baseball, and especially if we go to the DH here, and we have guys like Ohtani with the Angels. I know we've debated this a million times.
DH.
If we're gonna have guys like Ohtani with the Angels, and he's anywhere close to as good as he was on both sides of the ball this year, then it just seems like Ohtani has broken the award. He will always be your MVP in the American League.
I understand what you mean. Yeah.
So here's my proposal to Major League Baseball. I want to know, I didn't, someone who was smart would have gone back and researched this, but I can't imagine that in the history of the Hank Aaron Award, the winner of the Hank Aaron Award and the winner of the MVP are usually that different. If a pitcher's not getting it, how often would you guess, and again, we can look into this, that whoever wins the best overall offensive player for their league is not winning the MVP? I can't imagine it's that different. So my proposal is this. Just give the Hank Aaron Award the same importance the MVP has, and announce that in the Cy Young on the same day, because it's the best pitcher, the best hitter, as opposed to doing this best overall player thing where people get annoyed that once every 7 to 8 years we give it to a pitcher, that Ohtani is now going to just win the award in the American League if he keeps this up. Doesn't it make sense that we're splitting offense and defense more than ever before? We have separate awards, but yet we don't acknowledge one as much as the other.
I think it's a fair point. I think it is a fair point. It's very much like the Maxwell Award and the Heisman Trophy, right? Maxwell Award is, I believe, like the best player in college football, and Heisman's like most outstanding. It's like one of those two.
Okay, so what is the difference? Are we splitting
Right.
hairs here
Right.
on
Exactly.
this guy
Exactly.
was the best player?
I'm with you on this now. But here's what I'm saying is, I think in a case like this, there actually is a legitimate argument that they could be different. Like, I think, and this is so what I'm saying is, this year is not a good example for like these basically are the same award. I think this is a year where you look at it and you're like, this could be potentially an exception. I know you're not buying it, but like
I'm just not big. I'm not big on giving individual awards in baseball for the most part. I could see it in football.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
That based upon how your team does. If Juan Soto should not have it held against him that his team sold at the deadline and his team was trash and his bullpen blew tons of leads when he was one of the most exciting at bats in all of Major League. Like, how is that Juan Soto? Because did he somehow not do enough to get his team over the hump of 63 wins, whatever it was?
Totally fair. I just think I think what Bryce meant to a potential playoff push when nobody else was around is really impressive. I think Juan's going to walk a lot more in the second half because of it's like, okay, we'll take our chances with Josh Bell, right?
I do understand that numbers are going to be affected based upon your team, but I would just like look at the numbers and say this guy was the best offensive player or most outstanding, however you want to define it. I don't even know how we're splitting hairs. Like, to me, this is what it is. If you were having a fantasy baseball draft and you could time travel back to March, I told you that all the pitchers are off the board. We're doing separate offensive and pitching drafts. Who would be your number? And it was a National League only league. Who would be your number one pick?
I don't know how stuff scored. You have to let me know how it's scored. I don't play fantasy baseball.
Okay, fine. Let's say you were starting.
Explain it to me. Because what's a walk worth?
Well, it actually depends on your league. So I'm realizing maybe that wasn't the best example.
Thank you, sir.
It depends.
If you're starting a team, if you were starting a team this year and you had to pick a player,
if you were starting a team and you knew that you were drafting for 1 year a real Major League Baseball team, and I told you that we're going to do the drafts in 4 segments: National League offensive players, American League offensive players, National League pitchers, American League pitchers, and I told you, Josh Neighbors, we are up to the National League offensive players portion of the draft. This team will be the Washington Nationals for 1 year.
Yeah.
Who would you pick?
I would pick Bryce because of what he does individually. As like
so then he's your Hank Aaron Award. Yeah, he's your MVP.
Okay, so that's where we differ.
You answered my question.
Well, no, because I know that he can do more. Because I'm getting more out of him individually than I am out of the team. Now, if it's like, hey, who would I rather have?
You don't know who else is on the team yet. You don't know who else is on the team yet. This is the point. So the most valuable player and your best offensive player, you're going to want that guy because you don't know who else is on it yet.
Yes, that's why I'm saying Bryce. That's why I'm saying Bryce. Yes, that's exactly why I'm saying Bryce.
Okay, so then Bryce should win the award today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying
okay.
Yeah, I'm saying he should. I think Bryce should be MVP. I 110%. I've been saying that the entire time. I believe.
So let's split the awards. Give him Hank Aaron.
And what about were you fine last night with Corbin Burns?
Yeah, I mean, he was who I had expected to win it. I was actually kind of surprised that Wheeler had finished ahead of Scherzer. I thought Scherzer might have been. I was too, actually. It was close. It was in that mix. And this is, again, people sit here and argue innings, sit here and argue things like FIP. I think overall he probably was the best pitcher in the National League. I could pose the same question if I was letting you draft National League pitchers this year. The way you have to look at it is like when we decide things like how much time a guy has missed, is if I could have told you go back in time, you want any pitcher in the National League. Well, if you're okay with him, with not him specifically, but anyone missing X amount of games, and you would still draft that guy first, then he should still be your Cy Young.
I would have taken if you did the same thing we just did with offensive players. I would have taken Max first. Because
then he should be your vote for Cy Young.
Well. This from the standpoint of like how many guys that that guy's been a horse forever. He rarely gets hurt. He rarely gets hurt. That's why.
Okay, so you're putting appropriate value in that then.
Yeah, but that's like before the season. That's why it's not like it's a little bit something different. All right, you want to do some offseason stuff?
You have the ability to time travel. Why wouldn't you?
It's a do I know what's going to happen in the future, right? Do I know what the results are?
The season, every single game in Major League Baseball plays out the exact same way.
Okay, I would probably take Burns then for the whole, but like, because I'm just saying I trust.
Then he's your
Like
Cy Young.
Max, I mean Max is Max. Well, I would say if I was a team GM, I'd be like Max will give me 200 innings every freaking year, right? It's like
He will.
basically just book it.
Well, and that's the value that innings pitch should hold. Like that's how I tend to look at these things. My picks would be Harper and Burns, by the way.
This is why all these things need they need criteria for them as opposed to
yeah, it's just like
most outstanding player,
most outstanding player, most prolific player,
right?
The best player, the most valuable player. And we kill ourselves over the definition.
And I know Max didn't give you 200 innings, but he got pretty close this year and did not miss much time. He gave you 30 starts. That's more of the point. All right, do you want to talk about some off-season things here?
I would love to. We do have to get to a break though, right?
We do, but it's a inserted break, so we'll just let that happen on the audio version. All right, we're gonna go. Okay, let's do some things for the off season. So, my big thing is you saw the reports last week. Are you like me, where I don't see these multi-year guys signing? I don't see teams wanting it because also I don't know where my luxury tax ceiling is. So why am I going to make any moves that are going to push me up against that where I don't know where that is?
Also, how often does a multi-year contract, like the CBA expires on December 1st? How long do multi-year contracts get signed this early in the offseason? I mean,
they don't. I don't understand what the rush is.
Guys like Scott, agents like Scott Boras and these big-time free agents, they like to drag it out and take their time. This is not the NBA. This is not the NFL where everything happens in one day. I will let you in on kind of a interesting scenario. I don't know how realistic it is, which is that I had Scott Lauber about 2 weeks ago from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Phillies beat writer, on, and he was like, well, how kind of interesting would it be if we had this whole lockout, they got something done in the 11th hour, and we basically were forced into an NBA or NFL type of free agency where guys are just signing left and right. I don't know if that would really happen. It kind of seems far into the game of baseball that something like that would happen, but I think it would be rather interesting because, I mean, to your point, are you asking me if the top 5 shortstops in baseball are going to sign in the next 12 days? It seems unlikely.
No, that's why I didn't understand it. The 1 and 2 year deal, guys, that makes some sense, right? Noah Syndergaard 1 for 21 is not going to make or break the Angels. You know what I mean? It might change a couple things, but it's not. The Verlander stuff is really interesting. Would you take him on for 2 years?
$25 million you got? $25 million?
Would you take him on for 2 years?
Probably.
Because what is it? 1 for 25? Is that what it is? Or is it 2 for 25?
That was the initial report I had seen. Was it
1 for 25?
Yeah, which I thought was a lot of money for Justin.
That's crazy. So 1 for 21 is that's my max of where I'm okay, right? You're within a few million of the qualifying offer, right? 1 for 25.
They went above.
That's quarter of $100 million at that point. That is a bit more. I know it's a short amount, but you're starting to creep up to a big chunk there at 25.
Yeah, I mean this is partially against Verlander, knowing you probably won't get more years. Maybe he wanted the comfort of having something done before the lockout. Also betting on himself that maybe he'll prove that he's still a major league pitcher and.
Yeah, I put
will overpay next offseason.
I've made this point very clear on many podcasts. I believe that Justin Verlander is a subscriber to the TB12 method, and interpret that how you will. Everybody out there,
guy's going to be pitching until he's 50.
Yeah, it's just because some natural means, right? Just a little bit of whatever the oils that they're using at TB12 camp, and just
I don't think TB12 though, people make a big deal about what magic it does for Tom Brady. I've not extensively, but gone through his website. It seems like a pretty, I don't want to say easy
because Dan, there are other things beside the TB12 method going on with Tom Brady.
Well,
he's 45 and he plays in the NFL. Wow. What? He's just different, right?
Well, that's your theory. I was going to say he's either not. There's one of two things going on here, and I think I know where you stand, which is that. There's either more going on, but all he publishes, it seems like a nutrition plan that anyone could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also I'm not saying Tom is not incredibly dedicated. It's not what I'm saying. There are a lot of guys out there who I feel very
well. If Verlander's on this too, other athletes are on it too. Maybe it's.
I just think, look, if we look at Verlander's where the numbers
were
heading,
it could be the modern day athlete guy pitches into his.
I'm just saying the numbers were heading one direction.
Was doing it before it was cool.
The numbers were heading one direction. The age was hitting the other one, and then all of a sudden some things flipped. That velocity jumped real fast. I'm just that's all I'm saying. But to kind of get back to to some actual Nationals Philly stuff, like it's weird because they're in the same division as the world champions, and getting the Braves feels still doable, and not getting the Braves, but like contending in this
Playing
division.
the Braves.
It feels playing the Braves. It feels a bit more.
They
doable.
won the World Series, but they're just the Braves. Yeah.
Well, but they won 88 games, is what I'm saying, right? Like that.
Yes.
There are arguments to be made that if things play out differently for both like if the Nationals didn't sell like 88 games, you're telling me that the Schwarber, Turner, Soto trio couldn't have helped you push you to around 82 at least, 83. Like you're telling me that's and also
got to 82.
Also, if you kept Daniel Hudson in the bullpen, I think there's a few less blown saves that we see happen throughout the rest of the season. Anyway, like the Nats are not going to try to contend. They gave away way too much to the team that they're not going to next year. The Phillies, on the other hand, like that's a team that I think they and the Mets, right? It's those two. I'm a Philadelphia Phillies fan. I'm feeling pretty good about our position now, and we always say these kind of things, and it always never happen because baseball's weird as hell. But like the Mets are seeming like a little bit of a disaster right now, and they've got no pitching. Their pitching is the Mets must get Marcus Stroman back. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. They have to, or else I'm not sure what they're going to do on the pitching front. They're going to have to make some trades or something. So if you're a Phillies fan, what do you think it's going to take to get back to that number 2 spot and kind of get yourself into a playoff game? Who are you targeting? Who are you thinking about? What
this offseason?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there have been a number of names that might be pipe dreams, but I'd love to see in
biggest need. What's the biggest need?
The biggest need is probably, I mean, Dave Dombrowski said it as the bullpen. I probably agree with that. Look, this offense could certainly need some help, whether it's a left fielder, center fielder, certainly a leadoff guy. But if I had to target one thing, like get 2 really, really solid back end of your bullpen relievers who you can rely on, because every single time they get a reliever in here, the guy's career seems to go off the rails. He's not really Ian Kennedy, not that he's like in the class of relievers who could be targeted this offseason,
right?
But his season got significantly worse once he got to Philly. I think the rotation, I don't want to say it's set, but is actually stronger than those other 2 areas. I think it's good enough, especially if you feel like you can get a bounce back year from Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler coming off a Cy Young nomination type season. You're getting Zach Eflin back, Kyle Gibson at the end of your rotation, and Ranger Suarez, who emerged as with the lowest ERA on the team in more than 100 innings pitched this year. It's really left field, center field. I'm not a huge fan of Didi Gregorius. It seems like Bryson Stott's going to be your opening day shortstop. And then you kind of hope that Alec Boehm bounces back. Bryson Stott, he's the shortstop prospect that the Phillies got coming. He'll be on the
high school kid or a college kid?
No, well, he's I believe he's a Vegas guy.
Oh,
he is how old? Well, he's a big fan. Well, he's roommates, or he was roommates with Bryce Harper. I want to say in spring training. He is, let me give you, I know he's right around my age. He's 24 years old. He went to UNLV. They drafted him 3 years ago, I want to say.
So he's college kid,
2019, yeah. So he was at a UNLV from the Vegas area, has connections to Bryce Harper, will be the shortstop in no time, assuming they don't sign one of these top guys. It leaves yourself open to sign one of these top guys if they are willing to fork over the money for him, maybe move Stott to, say, second base. And then you try and move on from Gene Segura. You'll have Alec Boehm back at third.
Damn, why would you want to move on from Gene Segura?
Why? Well, if you got one of the top shortstops and you move Stott to second base, you try and get some value back for Segura.
Okay,
also, yeah.
He's like one of the most underrated players in baseball, I feel like. Like, if you just want somebody to get on base for you, I mean, he's going to get on base a lot.
I know. He's inconsistent more than people give credit for. I feel like everyone talks about how he had this really great season. He finished right around like just below 800 OPS. Like he goes through stretches where he's really, really good. He's also had some clubhouse issues with Joe Girardi, and it seems like there's a reason he's been pushed around
in the doghouse a little bit.
4 or 5 teams. Well, there have been a few incidents that, I mean, they seem to resolve themselves. But if they were able to sign, I mean, let's say they sign Carlos Correa, they sign Corey Seager, and then you move Bryson Stott to second base. Like, I would trade Gene Segura and try and get yourself a center fielder or a left fielder. Like, he would absolutely be my guy who gets bumped out of that. You can't start Didi Gregorius anymore. He just stinks. It made no sense Well, they didn't give him a qualifying offer. They gave him 2 years instead. So anyway, guys, I'm targeting the outfield. I mean,
a little bit of Kyle Schwarber action. How about the little Smash Brothers?
There's
Schwarber and Harper.
Castellanos has been out there. I did a whole thing with Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates. How I want the Phillies to target if the Pirates decide to trade. I can't speak. Brian Reynolds. How I'd want them to target him as an outfield spot. So there's a number of guys. The bullpen. You hear the names Kimbrel, Jansen. A few others out there at Melanson.
You know me. I'm against that paying stuff. You gotta try to find those guys. I just don't know. Switch, need a change, and that's the best way to do it, man.
The Phillies never seem to strike gold on those guys, which is really, really unfortunate. But I want to lock down this bullpen. That's not ignore. So I think it's close between that and left and center field, and also hopefully your left or center fielder knows how to lead off, because this offense, I think, was not at its best, but when Bryce Harper was here, was at its best when Andrew McCutchen was hitting in the leadoff spot and hitting well. Like, he really set the tone for that offense. He got that injury in San Diego, by the way, because he basically was forced to run last second because Gene Segura didn't run. It was a whole thing. I think it's not correct to blame Gene Segura for the injury, but that's kind of where Segura stuff started, and this is going back to the Kapler years. But that offense was the best when McCutchen was leading off well. He never really was the same. Like, they started him in the leadoff hole this year, wasn't so great. They moved him down in the lineup, and he had a productive season with a ton of home runs, and then ultimately finished out the year at a point where it seems like they're going to move on because his contract ended. But I want a leadoff guy like that. Whether it's a McCutchen. For years and years here in Philly, we obviously had Jimmy Rollins, and it does set the tone for the offense. And let's get some guys on base for Bryce, because far too often he comes out like nobody on 2 outs and he's hitting the solo. He has to
do his own thing. He
has to do his own thing. It's getting a little ridiculous. It's getting a little old. So number one need is the bullpen. We've all heard the stat about how many saves they blew this year. It's a little misleading. Some of them were in wins. Some of them were in the same game. But let's solidify that in the year now 2022, and let's get ourselves a left and center fielder. Maybe target one of the big time shortstops, and let's call it, a successful offseason. First full offseason.
That's a pretty long list, though. I mean, well, hold on.
It is a long list.
I feel like you neglected. Now, are they confident in the up and coming young arms they have in the starting realm? Because that, to me, the back part of the starting is. I was always smiling. If my team's playing the Phillies and I'm getting, the Chase Anderson.
So Anderson and Moore won't be back.
Obviously, that's great. But like a lot of teams, what they do is they bring 2 guys kind of like that in to try to hold down the back end.
Yeah, well, those guys should be brought in as not your 4th and 5th starter.
In case I need one, right? Yeah.
In case I need one. So those signings might have made a little bit more sense.
Is Ranger Suarez going to stay as a starter? You think
yes,
so?
I don't think there's any doubt.
Right? So
there's no doubt about that.
The rock which you build your church on is going to be.
He would have been if they had made. He would have made the playoff. If they would have made the playoffs, Ranger Suarez would have been your game 2 starter.
Yeah, of course. So now they're going to build upon Nola, and you hope he has a better year next year. Wheeler,
Suarez.
So where do you go from there? Who are the last 2? Because 3 guys didn't just get it done for you.
Eflin and Gibson.
Oh, that's right. I forgot they got Gibson there, and he's under contract for 1 more year.
For another year.
Yeah. So you got 4 now. So they're in a lot better position.
5.
Right, Zach Eflin, and Zach Eflin's fine for a 5th guy. So actually, they're a lot better off than I totally.
Yes, which is why I would say
right
bullpen, left center field. You go and sign one of the big time shortstops, because that is the class that's out there, and there's 5 of them. And
there's like 25 teams that think they're going to get those guys.
I know there are, but I'm saying
take your pick. Then who would you want?
If you have a chance to sign one of them, you don't pass it up because you're like, hey, we have Bryson Stott coming up through there. You sign.
Who would you want though? Who would you want?
I mean, Seager or Correa probably.
Let's be realistic. How many big contracts can your team eat?
Well, you're asking who is my favorite.
Well, no, who do you think can be on the team? I want to know who do you think can actually realistically playing?
Let's go more realistically. Let's go sign Trevor Story. Why not?
Because you just paid Harper. You paid Real Muto. You paid Wheeler. Did you pay Noah yet?
But they got him actually on the cheap a few years ago because they proactively signed him.
They prepaid. They did the prepaid plan. They did the same thing.
They did the prepaid.
The Ozzie Albies Ronald Acuna Jr. special. Like, how can they afford another massive contract?
Yeah,
also,
they could.
Dombrowski's going to do some dumbass stuff. Like he's going to give what's his name, Aaron Loop, like $30 million. So can we afford all these biggins? It's a serious question. It's a lot of big contracts, especially if you're going to go get some outfielders.
Well, Aaron Loop, former Philly, people do forget that. I once witnessed him come into a game and as a loogie and got 1 out and 2 pitches, and then Kapler went right back out to the mound. This is when you could make changes that often. It was
by the way,
electric.
Can I ask this? Can we just say,
yes.
Gay Kapler was rightfully fired from Philadelphia, and he went and
now it just became good.
He's just made some changes. And this happens with.
He has made some changes. I agree with you. I
don't know if that happens in Philadelphia, does it? I don't think it does happen in Philly.
Well, the talent's just not as good in Philly, but clearly Gabe Kapler was not the number one reason.
Giants aren't very talented. The Giants weren't very talented.
They had the Phillies. There is no manager in the history of baseball. Give me any manager ever who would have managed those Phillies or this year's Phillies to 100+ wins.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Okay, so clearly the Giants have more talent.
Well, no, okay, no, 100 wins. God, no. But let's be honest. On its face, that was an island of misfit toys, right?
You talk about the
Mike Talkman's playing center field for a bunch of their games in the middle of the year. It was an island of misfit toys.
You talk about the Giants, yeah.
Yeah, it was, and he coached them. I mean, but also I find him to be kind of a misfit toy as a manager, so I think he fit in very well there. So I think it kind of happened.
He's your 2021 manager of the year.
Yeah, there you go. That's what you need to know.
And were you surprised by Posey retiring? By the way,
no. So I mentioned this. I saw him play in a game this season in person, and I went with my dad and my granddad, and my dad and I basically kind of came to that consensus. We're he looks. I mean, as good as he was,
he looked offensive year in a decade.
I don't know if it was a certain thing, but he looked really tired, just kind of sluggish and just not moving as well. And I mean, the game has not been kind. I mean, it's been kind to him in some ways because he's such a good player, but that's a tough position. And obviously the injury. I mean,
you got the DH coming. You get him some games at first base.
Yeah, but I think he knows where he is, and also for him to leave on this. I mean,
he's pulling. I don't know I forget if you're a Seinfeld fan or not, but this seemed like a Costanza move. He's totally going out on a high note.
Right, exactly correct. And how many times in sports? How many times in sports we like this is? I'm a big combat sports fan. It's always this is sad. I am upset and angry with what I am watching at this point. You know what I mean? Like Ray Allen, right? That's the right way to do this thing. It's the right way to do it. Going out, when you're
on top. I don't know. It just seems like David Ortiz did the same thing. Guy was in the MVP.
Oh, people wanted him back very badly. So I think it sounds like you were pretty surprised by it.
I was surprised. I feel like he had more to give. Not necessarily.
I understand
Joey Bart. I understand Joey Bart's their catcher of the future, but with especially a DH likely coming to the National League, offensively, it seems like there was a role for him.
I'm with you. I think he had more to give, but I think he was done giving it. You know what I mean? I think he's just
then good for him. He went
and honestly, good for him. Good. I am glad
one of the few where usually baseball is done with you before you're done with it, but he's going to go out. I just hope he doesn't.
At that position too? At that position?
Oh, I know.
I mean,
look, him coming back the way he did this year was the exception to the rule.
Oh, he is. Yeah, he is and here's the thing too. You watch him physically, just not the athlete he was at one point in time, obviously. And for him to keep things going. I mean, baseball is one of those sports where it can be done, but I think at that position too, it's it just wears on you. Now, I will say there are some guys who are a bit different, right? Your Audieres, your Buster Posies, those guys hang around. Even your Kurt Suzuki's, who can kind of hang back there for a long time and take a beating while doing it. But I'm glad for him. I got one more question for you before we get out of here.
Yes.
So are we locking it out? Is that what we're gonna do? December 1st, we're locking it out.
Locked out Phillies National podcast?
Yeah, it's going to be locked out. Or are we going to be locked out of baseball is what I mean.
Oh, are you asking me, will they come to an agreement in the next
12 days?
They
find an agreement and it's, it's kind of, here, I'll give you one of those.
Does anyone think that's actually going to happen?
I'll give you a new timeline then. How about, do they reach an agreement before New Year's?
I would say no. Look, I'm not some sort of insider. I don't have any better.
Yeah, I'm
sense
just
of this
saying,
than
just
the next person.
just your thoughts.
No,
Just
it seems like these two sides are very stingy when it comes to this kind of thing. They're going to take their time splitting hairs on every last thing, and we'll probably have a decision on this in the 11th hour. I mean, some people are saying, any writer who I've talked to or anyone who you read, I'm kind of getting the sense when you hear them or you read them or you talk to them that they think this could potentially go into spring training, and then eventually when there start becoming pressure from the outside of, hey, we got to get something done, that's when something will get done, not proactively before the end of the calendar year.
Yeah. All right, Dan Wilson, Locked On Phillies, Locked On Nationals crossover. It's always fun, my friend. I always appreciate your time.
Always fun. I'm looking forward. Do we have the power to change the network name to Locked Out? Like on December 1st?
The Locked Out MLB Network is what it's going to be.
I mean, that's what it should be called. We're going to have some fun with these lockout shows, by the way.
We'll get some more. We'll get into some. I was part of the COVID. I was part of COVID, so I know how to navigate those.
We were. I don't know if you remember. There were some painstakingly long lockout content. I remember turning on SportsCenter every day the summer of like 2011 or 2010, whenever that big NFL one was. Like day 47 of the lockout.
Yeah,
they always show the photos of the lock outside the
right. It's just like it's like you may.
We're locked out. So
maybe.
If they go into a lockout, like we could do something fun, like we've been locked out of our podcast studio. Maybe I'll get locked out of my room and I won't be able to.
That'd be horrible. That'd be awful.
I'll be forced to record from outside.
Dan, I have to go do a Sirius XM radio show. So
yes,
as always,
go have fun.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for letting me go. Thank you. All right, Dan, we'll talk to you again soon. Yes.